Today was we had a good day today. Very pleased with what happened. Obviously we took all defensive guys except for Shane Lemieux, the guard in the fifth round. And the theme of the day for defense was speed. We really felt like we improved our team speed, and that was what we were trying to do. In the fourth round, we took Donnie Holmes, a kid from UCLA. He plays. He's a corner. He plays a nickel. He'll come in and compete for that spot right away. He's a tough kid. He can run, and we're excited that we were able to get him. Joe.
Yeah, Darnay's definitely a guy jumps out. He's got good speed, got real good short area quickness. He's contributed on the defense side of the ball. He's had impact in the kicking game. He plays with a good edge, shows some nasty. You can see he definitely plays bigger than his size. He's a guy who jumped out to us at the Senior Bowl, and his tape back that we saw down there. So really happy we were able to add him today.
All right, next round we got Shane Lemieux, the guard out of Oregon. Every really good club I've been with, the offensive line has set the tone. And this is a tough kid who plays mad. He's big, he's powerful, he's a pretty good athlete. And we're excited to add him to the mix. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, Shane's a guy, again, like Dave said, he plays with nasty. He sets the tone. You turn the Auburn game on, right from the first snap, he's tossing bodies around. You can't help but watch him, and a lot of crossover tape. He jumps out at you as well. He's a guy who's going to have interior swing value. We're going to cross-train him guard and center. So that's going to be something he's been working on out at Oregon, and we're going to keep on building with that as well.
The sixth round, we took Cam Brown, the big, long kid out of Penn State. He's 6'5" and change. He's 230. He runs well. And we feel, Cam and all the young men we took in the seventh round, we feel like they're players that have good developmental qualities and tools. And that's a big reason that and they all can run. Every one of these guys can run. So we're excited about that. Joe, talk about Cam, would you?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, physically, he's got good length. He's got a frame to fill out and play. He plays with good energy. He plays aggressive and downhill. He's going to bring versatility on the edge as well as a little bit of stack backer value. He brings impact for the kicking game with us. Looking at the way our defense is pieced up and set, we need guys that are versatile, that we can move by game plan and by need. Cam definitely fits within that. Obviously, Sean Spencer on the staff with us has spoke very highly of Cam since he got here. And he's also a guy that when you talk to other players on Penn State, you kind of hit them with who the leader on the defense is. Without hesitation, they all said Cam Brown. So that stuck out to us that this guy was been an alpha dog in the locker room. And, that brings the attitude we really look for in the field.
Okay, the next guy is Kyler Coughlin, another tall, linear guy out of Minnesota. Again, he's 6'3" change. He's 240. He can run. And he's got some versatility to him. Joe?
Yeah, again, and Dave hit this off the bat. Theme of the day was speed. And he's a guy that gives us more speed on the edge. He brings some length with him. He plays with a high motor, a lot of aggressiveness. He was productive in Minnesota's scheme. And, with the way we're going to play guys on the edge and in different packages, he's someone we really think we can get a lot of value out of. He'll come in here to compete.
All right, the next guy is T.J. Bronston. T.J. played at South Carolina, as you guys know. He's a little bit smaller. He plays the stack will linebacker. He's fast. He's really athletic. He's got good instincts. And he's just a little bit on the small side. But he plays at about 230. And we feel like he'll be a really good fit and also has a lot of special teams value.
Yeah, again, he's a guy you see making tackles, sideline to sideline. He's also a guy in South Carolina scheme. And, Muschamp's scheme down there isn't the simplest, which is good. Guys have been challenged mentally being down there. They've been coached hard. It's very similar to the guys we talked about playing at Georgia and Alabama, very similar schemes, very similar cultures. And he's a guy that was out there making a lot of calls, so you can see the communication element with him on the field as well as the productivity on the field.
Okay, next we drafted the safety out of Minnesota, Chris Williamson. Good-sized kid. He's long, he can run, and he'll hit you.
Yeah, and again, this is a guy who's going to have some combination corner to safety. We call the star position, that nickel position as well. So he'll bring some position flex on the defensive back, but he's got good size, speed combination. We look for him to go ahead and compete in multiple positions this year.
And the last guy who in former days was called Mr. Irrelevant, the NFL draft. Tate Crowder, linebacker out of Georgia. He was a running back early. They converted him. He's a 245-pound kid that runs 4.6 and plays 4.6. So, he's got some versatility and some value, and definitely has team's value.
Again, this is a guy that, has only played a couple years at linebacker. So we see a lot of upside with him, both in his, physical skills as well as his emerging defensive understanding. So he'll come in and he'll compete for positions at that will linebacker spot, as well as give impact to the kicking game. We think we added a very competitive group over these last few days, and we think today really brought in a lot of guys with versatility and speed.
We'll open it up to questions. Lombardo, you're up first.
Hey, guys, curious, the run on linebackers late, what does that say about not only these guys, but the linebackers you have on the roster? And second one, if I will, for you, Joe. You guys didn't take a tight end in this draft. How confident are you in Evan Ingram's durability, and how excited are you about Caden Smith?
Well, I'll tell you what, let me start with the linebackers first. I think it says a lot more just about how our defensive scheme fits together, that we're going to play with a lot of linebackers throughout the game. You build your defense, you really build 2/3 of your team. That's really your defense and your kicking game for covering kicks. So these guys, have a lot of impact across the board right there. In terms of our tight end position, we're excited about all the guys at that position right now, Matt. We're always looking for the best player available. We thought there were a few tight ends on the board that were worthy of being taken at certain points. When it came up to us, there's either someone better or they may have already been taken. But we have confidence in all the guys we have on our roster right now at that tight end position. In terms of, the durability questions of our players, look, they're all working right now through strength programs and rehab to get as healthy as they can. No one's ever 100% healthy once the football season begins. So it's, we've got to prepare everyone down the way for depth, because you never know who's going to play.
Just want to know about the depth chart.
Oh, perfect. There you go. That's simple enough.
If you can hear me, Dave and Joe, I was wondering if you could just talk about how the system went with this virtual draft. Joe, I know you made an audible there to move to a different location, and Dave, I wanted to ask you specifically about the offensive line. I know you used the term the other night that you wanted to fix it once and for all. Do you think this draft did that?
Well, Tom, we feel real good about it. We've got, 2 tackles and a guard that we feel real strong about it. Adding them to what we already have now, adding them to, Will and Kevin and Spencer Pulley and the rest of the group. I'm very happy, and Gatesy. We're very pleased with this. It's as I said earlier, Tom. Every team I've been with that has been playoff worthy and gone deep has always had a strong offensive line, because the O-line really does set the tone. So we're fired up about these guys because of their skill level, obviously their skill, their ability, and their play demeanor. Okay. What was the next part of the question?
Just how things worked out with the virtual nature of this draft.
Oh, that's right. It was different, but for us, it really worked well. Our Justin Warren, the head of our IT department, and Ty CM, was in the house here with me to make sure I didn't blow anything up. They just did an unbelievable job. They really did. And we had, in our software developers developed two programs for us, which we used. And John Dorney and his group with Julie Gliski. So they really did well. Everything went as smoothly as it could. Occasionally there was a glitch. People would get bumped off or whatever. But it really, considering the situation, it went it went about as well as you could expect.
Yeah, I'd second what Dave said right there. I thought the support staff within our building did a tremendous job. Look, I had to come to Jersey from Massachusetts. I was a little nervous with the overall setup, on my own personal lens, the way my house was set up, and I thought this was better for the overall function. I didn't want to be in the middle of a round and all of a sudden something froze up or I didn't have everything accessible to me. Justin Warren, our IT director, did a tremendous job setting everything up. And I'd say, as far as I know throughout the league, I didn't hear of any real issues. Everything went pretty smooth. We, had our versions of practice with the mock drafts and, even had a couple of what you would refer to as like scrimmages, Dave, right? With some other friendly teams in the league to kind of make sure the function team to team worked as well. So, that was beneficial for all of us.
Joe, this one's for you. I'm just curious. I know we talked to Andrew and then Xavier, and they talked about a lot of the communications with you guys leading up to the draft, really focused on them as people off the field, and there weren't many conversations about football. Now, my assumption was that you let the tape speak for itself on the football end of things, but is that your philosophy at least in this draft, that you wanted to focus everything you can get out of the video calls that was kind of non-football, and then let the scouts and whatever you see, take care of the football end of things?
Well, I think there's definitely different things you have to find out about everybody. But ultimately you have to find out everything before you bring somebody in. I'd say with both, Andrew and Xavier, as well as with all the players, we do talk at length about the football. Really with Andrew and with Xavier, we get to talk a lot with them early on in the process at the combine and have meetings with those guys in person where we get to talk a lot of football, to get on tape, to get on the board and go through that. Towards the end of the process, to what they're referring to, I had a number of conversations with a lot of prospects, but at length with Andrew, Xavier, and other players, where it was important for me to be able to just have some sit-down time. And like we are right now, this was about as intimate as we could be, but at least you can look each other in the eye to a degree and kind of see each other's reactions. And I want to find out as much about these guys as a person as I could. And I want to know what kind of guys we're bringing in the building. I want to know what makes them tick, and that's important to me. Look, everybody's different. You got 53 guys on a roster. We're going to have 90 on the roster through spring and training camp. You've got to know how to get to every player. So on the front end, you want to find out as much as you can to narrow down if they fit you. But at the same time, you want to gather as much information that once you get them in the building, it helps you reach them as fast as possible. It's important to find out inside what makes someone tick and how they respond.
Just as a quick follow-up, with prospects that you're talking to, do you walk a fine line between wanting to just keep the focus on them, or do you talk about other guys and try to get some information on whether it's teammates or guys that they've gone against? How do you handle that, or how did you handle that in this process?
I think that's always a natural part of the process. If you're talking to an offensive lineman, it's natural to say who are the best rushers you've gone against. And if it's a pass rusher, who's the best offensive lineman you've gone against. If it's someone that has competed against each other, for example, you had Chase on kid out of LSU this year. He went against Andrew. We talked to both those guys at length, so it's important that, you talk to both of them. Hey, who's the best rusher? Who's the best offensive lineman? It's interesting to see what they say. It's also interesting to talk to teammates and ask them about players on their team. For example, maybe multiple receivers on a team, and you ask a defensive back, hey, who do you think the best receiver on your team is? Or if you were starting a team, who'd you pick first? That sheds a lot of light, because one thing you'll find out is, you can't lie to the players. They really know. We have to dig for as coaches, and support staff to really find out about the players. Inside that locker room, they know. They know who the dudes are.
Thanks, Joe.
Duggan, you can go ahead with your question.
Hey, what's up, guys? I got a question for both of you. Joe, first off, just what's the plan with the rookies? What's the logistics for these guys for the next couple of days, weeks, months? Just how do you get them going?
So the league's allowed us to have a version of a rookie mini camp, and they've given us a couple weekends. We're going to get our guys in. We're getting all the information from the league as far as the days, the hours, and the structure we're allowed to work within, and then we'll map out the specifics. But we're going to get them somewhere around next weekend to make sure that we can meet with them and start them on the process. It'll be very similar to what our vets have already gone through. For them, it'll be a little bit more of an orientation on the front end and let them know a little bit more about our program. But to be honest with you, with our vets, it's a new staff, it's a new program, it's an orientation for them as well. So our coaches will almost repeat a lot of the process they started this week with our vets. And again, it'll be all virtual for right now, so we've got to bridge the gaps as much as we can.
And then for Dave, this isn't a draft question, but we won't talk to you in the next week. Just curious, have you guys made a decision on the fifth-year options for Evan and Jabril?
We're not. We got to get together. We'll make decisions this coming week, Dan. It's with the craziness on and off the field, so to speak, of the last 6 weeks. We've had preliminary conversations, and we'll make those decisions pretty quick.
Just wanted to know, a lot of people expected you to come away with a center in this draft. Did the value just not match up to the need, and what's the plan at center going forward?
Well, value and needs, has always got to be there. We right now what we've got is, as Joe says, it's all about competition. And we're going to turn around and we're going to cross-train. You know, Joe already told you he's going to cross-train Shane Lemieux. And we got Nick Gates that we're going to work with. And you got Spencer Pulley, a returning center. And then we'll see what happens with Pio, with his Achilles, and see what kind of recovery he makes. So it's, we feel like we've got 3 to 4 guys that have put, two of whom have played the position in varsity competition. Nick worked at center last year during practice. And of course, Shane's never done it in a game, and we're gonna cross-train him and see where it goes. But we've got 2 centers in the building that have played varsity snaps and have played winning football.
I have 2 questions, if I could. You mentioned, and either one of you can take this, but you mentioned that you would consider cross-training some of these guys on the offensive line. And I'm just wondering, learning in the classroom and mental reps is one thing, but ultimately you got to get out there and do it because, that's the second part of it. So without knowing if you're going to have practices, I mean, how do you kind of get these guys up to speed so that if and when you do get to the practice field, they're going to be able to step right in as though they've never missed a beat?
Go ahead, Joe. I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, so first off, I'll talk on the mental part of it, which we have access to in the virtual setting. So for the offensive line, and this is true really with all positions to know how the pieces fit, but with the offensive line, you really have to know the entire concept and the entire scheme. So a center's got to know the guard, the tackle, and vice versa down the line. Playing right and left mirror each other responsibility-wise, just knowing if you're on the front or the back side. The cross-training physically, really at this point right now, comes, on the players themselves. And through the strength program we've given them, now we're not monitoring workouts, so we've made some stuff available to the players that they can follow and keep up with, and we've made ourselves accessible through the strength coaches and nutritionists. They can reach out for help. But we've incorporated, along with conditioning, some agility drills as well that would fit into position specifics. So we can go ahead and say, for center reps, for guard reps, for tackle reps within the agilities, this is what you're going to work today on a daily basis. Now, a lot of this stuff is really just total movement for an athlete as it is. But specifically with the center, you've got to find a way to tie in the movements with the actual movement of the ball as well. Snapping, putting the ball between your legs, and then moving accordingly. Look, it's a lot easier for those OTAs. We had phase 2 and OTAs with them guaranteed. We can get on the field, work on a daily basis. Right now, we're kind of at the suspect of just these guys working on their own in the fields. But I'll tell you what, they've shown up this week with a full head of steam. I'm very pleased with the progress they've made, with the urgency and attentiveness they've shown in the meetings. And I trust it's happening off the field as well.
And then if I could, just one more question. Do you feel, considering you didn't go for a receiver in this deep class, and I don't know what you plan to add, but do you feel you have enough speed at that position?
Well, they can all run. They can all run. And I think, there's different elements of speed that tie in all the receivers. So you may have the deep threat receiver. You may have the slot receiver with more short area quickness and shifty. You may have the size receiver where it's really the release speed that's important as far as getting off the line, establishing body position. I'd say the one thing that we stress to everybody is the roster building process is not done by any measure after the draft. There's going to be a lot of roster movement throughout the league this next week, coming weeks throughout the remainder of spring. And then when we get to training camp, they'll continue to roll and turn again. So, we're always looking to see who's available and compete within our own roster. A lot of these questions may be met later on, but right now we're going to let guys on our roster compete full speed. And look, right now our scouts and personnel are working together with the coaches of identifying undrafted guys and phones with them right now, talking with their agents and working with getting them added as well.
Dave, I got a question for you. Now that you've seen the draft play out and you know where you used your premium picks, how do you feel at edge rusher? And do you guys need to circle back in free agency to a Marcus Golden or to a proven guy like that now that you know you didn't use a premium pick on that spot?
Ryan, it's it's one of those deals where we've, as I've said before, it's sometimes people think that all the sacks got to come from 1 or 2 guys. It's a group effort, okay? We're going to evaluate, as Joe said, we're going to constantly evaluate. Roster building is a 12-month season, okay? It's, at 365 and it's 24/7. So at the end of the day, we feel good about where we're at, but we'll continue to try to improve it.
Joe, this is for you. You've been a part of, 8 previous drafts in the NFL?
Yes, it's been my nine.
Right, all with one team, all as a special teams guy. So what was this like for you? Now, obviously, this is very different. Nobody's done ever a draft like this, but just having input as a head coach, working with a new organization, and there's always this feel. Does the head coach have enough input? This is a Joe Judge pick. This is a Dave Gettleman pick, that kind of thing. So how was this whole thing for you, even though it was remote, just knowing your input as a head coach? And the second thing is, do you feel like you've let down a lot of people by not having Abby show up on the on the national TV?
So I'll answer the last question first. I tried to bring the dog with me. I was told that I cannot bring the dog with me. And I feel like I let my kids down. I've been getting, frown-faced memes all weekend because everyone else's kids got to be on TV. So I got a 6-year-old who wants to know if she'll ever be famous. So I told her it's okay. No news is good news sometimes. But I'd say this, going back to the first question, listen, from when I first got here, we talked in the interview, and I'll tell you what, this entire process has been tremendous. There's definitely a full teamwork environment in our building. Dave has been awesome. His staff has been great. The coaches have had a lot of involvement. There's been constant communication going back and forth. Probably one of the more disappointing things we didn't get to experience was going on the road together, coaches and scouts, and working the pro days. But that was bridged a lot with scouts and coaches working a lot through these virtual interviews with Zooms and constant communication. We spent a lot of time at night, talking and going back over, watching tape together, talking to prospects. I spent a lot of time in the meetings with Dave and his staff and going through the scouts and hearing everybody's opinion. And the important thing in these processes is, knowing what you see and sticking to your guns. And look, it's not everyone's going to see everything the same way. So you go through this process, it's tough. And you've got to remember, these scouts do a very, very difficult job. They spend a whole lot of nights away from their families on the road in hotels, okay? And to go through that excruciating process of evaluating someone, lining them up on your board, hoping to have a chance to get somebody, just to watch another team take them away from you. Or maybe you have someone whose opinion is a little bit different or varied, and you got someone like me maybe hammering back at you saying he may not be a fit for us. That's a tough thing. But the entire way, even through some of those kind of, natural disagreements and opinions, there's been a great teamwork environment in the building, and I couldn't be more pleased with it. Was it different being a head coach than a special teams coordinator? Absolutely. There's just different responsibilities that come with it. But I'll tell you what, I thought, the coaching staff gave me great input and insight. There's a lot of experience on the staff that I was able to lean on the front end and kind of ask advice from of how to handle different situations or things that may come up that I didn't expect. Me and David had great conversations at length, whether it's late at night or early in the morning, where we've gone back over the board and talked to different scenarios that would come up so that when they did come up, we were prepared for it. And, look, obviously it's a different situation. It was a different medium this year being virtual. But I'll tell you what, through all the, change-ups that came our way, I thought we operated pretty effectively as an entire staff.
Thanks, Joe.
Zach, you could go ahead with your question.
Hey, Joe, I know you said that you guys aren't done making moves. The offseason's not over. But now that you have been through this whole draft and you went through the initial wave of free agency, how do you kind of feel about where this team sits here right now compared to maybe when you started out here in January?
Well, we haven't been on the field yet. So that's the biggest answer right there. Look, you can't really evaluate until you get on the grass. Right now we have a lot of names on paper. There's a lot of guys that are, itching to get on the grass and compete and start proving themselves. Look, everyone laughs when I say it, but our depth chart's a blank slate right now. We have a lot of names. Everyone has to earn every spot they get. So when we get out there on day one, whoever the first 5 linemen are out there, that's just the first 5 guys taking a rep. That's not a spot in concrete at all. They've got to earn to keep that spot. And we'll change up continuously throughout training camp, or OTAs whenever we get these guys. To give you an answer as far as where we are, I think we've made some good moves in terms of bringing in pieces that could help us. But overall, I can't really give you a solid answer. Just I can't comment on specific players until we really get them on the grass, guys. Otherwise, it's just speculation and hypotheticals.
Dave, I'm just curious. Joe talked about what it was like for him to do it as a head coach. How different was it to have him as the head coach working compared to some of the head coaches you've had in the past?
Working with anybody that's, working with Joe is different than working with Ron Rivera than working with Pat Shermer. Anybody you work with that's not the same person is going to be different, Jordan. It was, great working with Joe. And at the end of the day, It's not a Dave Gettleman decision. They're not Joe Judge decisions. They're New York Football Giant decisions. And that's really the way it is. It was terrific working with Joe. It was thorough. You know, it was well done, and we felt very prepared and felt we had a good, really good, solid draft.
About the trade, did you get close though? Was there any point, you mentioned the second round, was there any other point that you did get close, or do you want to maybe add a pick between that 63 pick gap? Or
There were calls. There were calls, Jordan, but I just, I don't believe in overpaying. We had the couple of times that there were decent opportunities to trade back, the player we wanted was there, plain and simple. So we just took the player. That's all.
Joe, this question's for you. There have been a couple of reports about phone calls you made to a couple of your high picks in which you're saying, I don't want to hear you talking about Super Bowls. I don't want you to hear you comparing yourself to anybody. I want you to put your head down and work. And I'm just curious, obviously you work to become a head coach. And what goes into deciding how that first phone call is going to go, why you're handling it that way. And, is that about setting the exact tone you want for your program right off the bat?
Well, I think there's more said on the phone calls than just what not to do. There was a lot of, we're very excited about adding these players and giving them a chance to come up and compete and add to our team. Look, to be honest with you, and I think you guys have kind of found out a little bit in the short time we've been doing this together, but look, I'm not big into predictions. Okay. I'm not big into that. I'm not big into comparing people to other people. One thing that drives me nuts is when sometimes guys get, they get drafted, the emotion gets caught up, and they stand on the stage a lot of times, and what do they say? Start talking about they're going to take over the league. Okay, well, look, this is a guy who hasn't been in the league for 5 seconds. What do they know about taking over the league? Okay, what they have to worry about at this point is improving. All right, put your head down, just work hard. Hey, here's the reality in every one of these rookies we just took. They don't know how to be a pro yet. They don't. As much as they may think they do, they don't. Okay? Physically, they have an advantage over a lot of vets because they have young legs. But in terms of technique, in terms of mentally how to prepare themselves and handle the situations, in terms of emotionally how to handle the duration of a season, they have no idea what they're doing yet. So they're behind in everything except for having fresh young legs with everyone they're competing against. They watch it on TV. They think they have an understanding of what's going on in the league. The reality is they don't. And the faster they understand that, the better off they'll be in a short term to improve and give themselves a chance to compete. So, look, everyone gets excited. When you get excited, you let emotion get the best of you. A lot of times you say things, you turn around afterwards and go, oh, maybe that wasn't the best thing to say. Well, sometimes you don't want to have those slips when you got millions of people and it's forever ingrained anyway in, print, social media, whatever it may be. You want to make sure that, sometimes you wish you had someone give you a little bit of guidance, So sometimes it's good just to get reminded at a certain time that, hey, listen, this is your focus. This is what we're building. This is what our culture here is going to be. Let's just make sure you say the right thing at the right time. Number one, not to make yourself have any expectations you now have to meet, because it's going to be tough enough for you to just go ahead and get in the rhythm of being a pro as it is. And then number two, don't ever, the whole comparisons and predictions, just worry about what you can control. And right now, all you can control is showing up, doing your job day by day and improving. And that's it. So.
You like how the guys handled it, the group that you dealt with?
I've only seen a couple of the actual quotes or interviews. I've gone back and looked at a couple of them that Pat Hanlon sent my way. But you know what? Look, I'm very pleased. But I'd say this, I'm not surprised because we spent a lot of time with these guys on the front end. So we spent a lot of time on the character, on the traits, on the personality. Look, we're not collecting talent. We're building a team, and it's important. There's a lot of good players out there. There's not a lot of right fits. And you want to find the right fits to bring into your locker room. So it's important to spend as much time with these guys as people on the front end to make sure that you're building a culture in your locker room. I don't want 53 independent contractors. I want one team. And that's what we have to make sure we bring in the right guys for that.